This example is asking us to differentiate, which just means take the derivative of this huge equation right here. And then they always kind of put this with respect to x language at the back end. That's just sort of saying to us what variable we care about. So we're caring about the x variable here. So in this problem, when you're trying to decide, you can see that there's a lot happening. And so generally this is when we start seeing rules inside of rules, derivatives inside of derivatives. So when you're writing this down, don't stop listening to what's going on inside your head, right? You should say, okay, this is 35x, all that raised to the sixth times, and then 5x to the fourth plus 3x squared, and all of that raised to the seventh. So when you listen to yourself talk, that kind of clues you in a little bit on what your primary rule might be. The other way that I tell my students to do is I tell them to look at the overall shape of what the problem is. Sort of squint your eyes and look down at your problem and say, okay, when I'm squinting my eyes, does the shape really look like two chunks being multiplied? Is that the main thing happening? And if so, then we're going to be looking at a product rule in that situation. Does it look like two chunks being divided? Well, if it looks like two chunks being divided, then I want to apply the quotient rule as my primary rule. Or am I looking at sort of a set of parentheses raised to a power here, something raised to something? Or am I looking at a special case derivative, one of those derivatives we just have to memorize? If that's the scenario, then we're looking at a chain rule as our primary rule. So when I squint my eyes and look over at this, what my eyes see is that I have first and foremost overall two chunks being multiplied. So that is telling me that my primary rule is going to be the product rule. So then I write down my product rule. My product rule is saying that I use goes f g prime plus gf prime. I'm going to come through and I'm going to label one of my chunks the f piece. And then I'm going to label one of my chunks the G piece, the other chunk the G piece, and then I break them into their bite-sized little math problems. So I say, okay, F equals 5x cubed minus 45x squared plus 35x, all of that raised to the sixth. And then my G piece is the other chunk. So G is 5x to the fourth plus 3x squared all raised to the seventh. So now I've taken this bigger problem and I've broken it down into these bite-sized little math problems. So to do my product rule, I need to go find f prime. So that's now when I look at f and I treat it like a brand new math problem. And I say, if I just had to take the derivative of that, what shape am I looking at there? Well, that shape, to my mind, looks like a chain rule. That's a classic chain rule setup. You've got something inside a set of parentheses raised to a power. So when I'm doing the chain rule, my chain rule saying goes d in times d out. So I take the derivative of whatever is inside those parentheses. So my inside piece right now is that 5x cubed. And again, you can break this into bite-sized little math problems. The more of these you do, the more you'll just kind of be able to do this in your head. But until then, you break it into bite-sized math problems. So I have my inside piece, so I need to go find the derivative of the in. Well, that's going to flow me right into a bunch of stuff being added and subtracted. That's just our power rule, right? Like I always say, everything ends up flowing through the power rule. So the power rule just says bring the power down and then subtract 1 from the power. So following that rule here, I bring my power down. I get 3 times 5 gets me 15x. Subtracting 1 from the power gets me x squared. Bring the 2 down. 2 times negative 45 gets me negative 90x. Subtract 1 from the power gets me x to the first. I got an unwritten 1 on that x, right? So I bring that down. 1 times 35 gets me 35. And then we end up with that x to the 0 power. And anything to the 0 power, no matter what it is, even x always equals 1. So 1 times 35 gets us that. And now we need the outside piece, so the derivative of the outside chunk. Well, the outside piece is really this sixth power. So when I come to do my out is all that stuff that I already took the derivative of raised to the sixth power. So this is 5x cubed minus 45x squared plus 35x. And now I take the derivative of the outside. Well, that's, again, just going to be a big power rule. I am going to bring this power down in front. I leave alone all the junk I already took the derivative of, and then we subtract 1 from the power, so that gets us to the 5th power there. And again, all this stuff on the inside of the parentheses stays the same. And so why did we do that? Well, we did that because we needed to find the derivative of f. We were following our chain rule right here to take the derivative of f. So now, following the chain rule recipe, I take the derivative of the in, the d in. So that's going to be 15x squared minus 90x plus 35. And then I multiply that by the derivative of the outside, so the d out piece. And so that's going to be 6 times 5x cubed minus 45x squared plus 35x, and all of that to the 5th. So done with our f prime, and then to finish out all of our ingredients, all the things we need for our product rule, which is our primary rule, we need to go find g prime. Well, looking at g prime, we again run into that same situation. We have something inside something else. And so again, what we're looking at here is another chain rule to get our g prime. So again, we're looking at a d in, d out. So whatever is inside the parentheses, that's my inside piece. So the inside piece on this is going to be 5x to the 4th plus 3x squared. We take the derivative of that, again, following our power rule. So to get our d in, we bring the 4 down. 4 times 5 gets us 20x. Subtract 1 from the power gets us x to the 3rd. Then we bring our 2 down. 2 times 3 gets us 6x. And subtracting 1 from the power gets us x to the 1st. Now we need to go take care of our derivative of our outside piece. Well, the outside piece is this 7th power here. So when we're looking at this, this is a bunch of junk raised to the 7th power. All the stuff inside there comes along for the ride, but we already took its derivative, so we really don't care about it. Our derivative now is just, again, a big power rule to get this d out here. So the derivative of the outside, we're going to bring that 7 down. We're going to leave alone all the junk we already took the derivative of, and then we subtract 1 from the power. And so inside there is still all that stuff we already took the derivative of. So again, remind yourself what you were really doing. You were really doing all of this so that you could follow the chain rule to get the derivative of g, your g prime. So following our chain rule, we would get d in, so the derivative of the inside piece, 20x cubed plus 6x, times the derivative of the outside piece, times the d out. And so we would get out of there 7, and then 5x to the 4th plus 3x squared, all of that to the 6th. Now, what we really have is finally everything we need to continue to put together our primary rule. We have everything we now need to put together our product rule recipe. So we find our derivative following that product rule. So f prime of x, following the product rule, make sure you give yourself enough space because sometimes these get long. So it says first go grab f. So we go grab the f piece. 5x cubed minus 45x squared plus 35x, all of that to the 6th. Multiply that by g prime. So we go grab our g prime. So 20x to the 3rd plus 6x times 7 times 5x to the 4th plus 3x squared to the 6th. Plus, because that's what our recipe calls for, go grab the g piece. So we go grab our g piece, which is 5x to the 4th plus 3x squared all to the 7th. And then we go find our f prime chunk, which is this chunk here. And we're probably going to need to erase our power rule right now because otherwise we will not have enough space to enter this all in. So putting in our f prime, the last piece of our product rule, we get 15x squared minus 90x plus 35, and then times 6 parentheses 5x cubed minus 45x squared plus 35x, all of that to the 5th. And walk away. You're done. You don't have to simplify it. That is the derivative of your starting equation. So again, the process here, decide what your primary rule is. Use that primary rule to break your problem into bite-sized chunks, and then from there, that will help you see where those secondary rules start coming into play. But again, don't simplify that thing, just write it down and walk away. Thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, please click that like button and subscribe. And also share it with your friends and anyone else you know who might be crying about an upcoming AP Calc test. You can find more videos from me, more sample AP Calc questions, and my complete AP Calc study guide over at my website, apcalcprep.com. Have a great one.